All right, call this meeting to order. And introductions, I think we know everyone, but we'll start with Russ.
Russ DeSlyle, the MACC Authority Board.
Tom Bird, Ottawa Road Commission.
Terry Nienhuis, Allen Township.
Jerry Hunsberger, Park Township.
Terry Hoffmeyer, Laketown Township.
Tim Berkman with the MACC.
David Van Gedolven with the MACC.
Kevin Kleinstra, City of Zealand. Joe Bauman, Ottawa County Commissioners.
Ken Dewar, Fillmore Township.
John Kleinexel, Allegan County.
Jim Story, Allegan County Board of Commissioners.
Rob Hank with the MACC.
Carolyn Walsh with the MACC.
Joe Spelling with the MACC.
Kelly Howard with the MACC.
Good to have you here, Skip. All right, you have the minutes. If we could have a motion or if there's any corrections.
Move to approve.
Second.
Corrections, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any public comments? Okay. All right, transportation, is Brad here?
No, so Brad Charlo was planning to be here and giving an update on the state's long-range transportation plan and the process that they're going through, but obviously, due to the weather, he was going to be traveling from Lansing, and we decided we'd go ahead and give him a spot maybe at the January meeting if the weather's better then. But they're currently in the first phase of a two-phase process, looking at updating the plan for the 2045 horizon. And this is something that's really going to roll out in 2021. So over the next 2 years, they're going to be taking the steps to update that plan. So there's time for him to come and give us an update, but he was just looking to present to you all and get any feedback. So look for that probably in January for him to come and give that update.
Okay. Do you want to introduce Joe or?
Sure. Okay. So Joe Speldy's going to give us an update on our on the MACC non-motorized transportation plan. This is a component of our long-range plan, which we also are in the process of going through and updating for the 2045 horizon year. And so a component of that is looking at updating the non-motorized portion. And so Joe's been serving as our intern. He's worked with us through the summer, and now into this fall, we've hired him as a part-time basis to continue in serving in that capacity. And so he's been focused on this really for the last month or so, and he has an update to share with you. So Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
So yeah, MACC non-motorized plan, part of our long-range transportation plan. Really looking at a few adjustments that can be made to improve the facilities we have and make use of what we have, and then discover opportunities for more facilities and make more connections between the units of government. So just a basic description of the plan is the MACC non-motorized plan is a regional planning document addressing safety, education, and recommending connections for efficient travel through the MACC area. The vision of the plan is to create a connected network of bicycle and pedestrian facilities, providing opportunities for safe and efficient travel through the MACC area, and then goals to achieve that vision. So most of these, I believe, were agreed on in a 2009 MACC policy meeting when the non-motorized plan was first being thought about. So yeah, the goals, provide residents with increased travel opportunities, increase safety for residents and employees who walk and or bike, connect existing facilities, local and regional, and assisting in promoting pedestrian and bicycle friendly character of the region. So much of the updates that we'll be making are, working to better achieve these goals going forward. So kind of the key updates we'd like to make are maps of existing and future non-motorized projects. We met with the tech committee about a week or two ago, handed them a map of what we had as far as non-motorized facilities, and then got good feedback to make improvements and update the maps that are in the non-motorized plan. Updating pedestrian and bicycle collision data. So we're doing a 5-year from 2009 to 2014. adding a variety of resource guides, so included with the AASHTO guide, but also using NACTO and different design considerations. Identifying and accommodating different types of non-motorized users, so looking at the different groups that are using our facilities, and then community engagement. How can we better promote it and increase that bicycle and pedestrian character? So this is the existing network as it was in 2014, with kind of the breakdown for each unit of government. So this is, needs to be updated, but it just kind of shows a picture of where we were in 2014. Same as this is in the last plan, the pedestrian and bicycle collision data, showing very specific locations, intersections along different corridors. So we'd ideally like to make this same graphic in our new plan, and working with fire and EMS and different groups to get this down to location specific. Just from a general look from Michigan traffic crash facts, this is what we're looking at from 2014 to 2017 as far as bicyclists involved crashes. So you can kind of see a little picture of what we're looking at, and then pedestrian involved crashes from 2014 to 2017. Design considerations. So right now we're currently just featuring the AASHTO guide on the far right, but including these urban street design guides and urban bikeway design guides, and just kind of expanding our design considerations. So some of those may look like the following. So from the separated car protected bike lanes, my personal favorite is the one with the tulip planters. So good for Holland, but yeah, just kind of adding more resources to be pulled from. And then back to the types of riders, I really like this graphic because it kind of shows different groups of people that are using our facilities, and some may fit into all these categories, some may just be one. So kind of recognizing where there's gaps in our facilities and the users. And then from that, adding this as a contextual guidance for building facilities that are good for all types of riders, which shows, if there's a street that has a 10 mile per hour and doesn't have a lot of traffic, that a shared street is the best facility to be implemented. Whereas something with more traffic, greater than 26 miles per hour, a protected bicycle lane might be a better option there. So just kind of adding a resource guide to the plan. And then community engagement. So as part of our long-range transportation plan, we have currently implemented this survey, which does ask some questions about our non-motorized plan. So getting that out to the public and getting local input is really beneficial to us. And then our Green Commute Week is another big promoter of non-motorized transportation. So continually growing that and getting our numbers up is always a good thing. And then social media, increasing our presence there and really promoting that character and that bicycle pedestrian friendliness. And that's all. Any questions or feedback? Sure.
I'm going to kind of direct it to everybody. Sure. But first of all, very well done. Very interesting. Probably one of the most important things we've got going. We just finished, I think, our 56th mile of dedicated bike lane, paved bike lane this past summer. There's two issues. We need to deal with the fact that our millage originally, and it's been renewed twice, says is for non-motorized transportation. We understand that that's for safety reasons. We're getting more and more and more of these electric or pedal assist bikes, and to my knowledge, we don't enforce it. However, we may have to look at that, and I know what we're going to do. The second thing, this is really a big issue to us, and I'm glad people from the county are here and listening. We need to, in the county, in the township portions, in my opinion, review and possibly look at things differently relative to Charles or marked bike lanes. We requested on a number of occasions this. We get no place with the road commission on it. We need to upgrade our bike lane on the south side. The city just did a phenomenal job. It took them a couple of years to finish what they did. And it's real evident when you leave the city and go into Park Township. And we need to upgrade, but it's going to make no sense at all if we can't have, at least in that area, a marked lane like the city has, and like the city has downtown. We feel very strongly about that, and somehow MACC needs to help us with that. Thank you for allowing me to make the comment.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify the dilemma, we've discussed this a number of times at the Road Commission. The answer we get from our engineering department is that the AASHTO standards for a marked dedicated bike lane is, John, correct me if I'm wrong, 7-foot width for a marked bike lane?
5.
5 foot? Okay. So unless we have that width, we're reluctant, or some people are reluctant within the Road Commission to mark it with a Sharrow, or not a Sharrow, with a bicycle logo for liability reasons. If someone gets injured there thinking it's a dedicated bike lane that meets the national standards and it doesn't, then there's a question of culpability. I understand what you're saying. It'd be nice to encourage people to utilize whatever width is there, 3 feet, 4 feet. But that's a point that needs further debate and clarification.
I'm not sure what the city did on the south side, but if we replicate what they did, we might get a different answer.
I don't know what the city's analysis was.
Nancy, do you know what the width is?
No, not off the top of my
Okay.
head. But I know it's a lesser lane than we think in many places. I know Ian Lockwood had points about that when he came here. And the idea of a Sharrow is it's not all yours, it's not all mine, but be careful because bikes could be here. But of course, if it's covered with snow, but nobody's riding bikes then too much anyway. But
Thank you.
Jerry, are you referring to the project this past year where the road was widened and bike lanes were added? I forget the name of the street, but or is there a particular?
Well, the city redid the road, and
Yes.
some areas, if I recall, Nancy, correct me, there was a left turn lane, and you eliminated, at least in part of it, the left turn lane, made it a little wider, and then to allow for that, certainly that's got to be part of the consideration.
Sure. And that's ideally what this process is about, is identifying on the maps, you know, where we see those critical connections. I mean, obviously it was already done back, what year was that you showed the map from? 2014. But updating that and looking for new connections, you know, that we can focus on so that as projects happen, if it's a repaving project, maybe it can be widened a little bit. You know, having a widened shoulder, paved shoulder is one avenue to go with. But as projects occur, having them on this plan and identified so that you know, it helps, like with the TIP process that we're going through right now, as far as identifying federal funds to be used on a particular corridor. If we can say this is also identified as a non-motorized route, you know, that may, you know, further increase its eligibility, let's say, for a particular funding avenue.
Yes, sir. Like most things in this world, everything we do costs money. And certainly, to solve your problem, you could probably do, as many townships are doing now, you're just paying for the additional width, and then you can go ahead and have them marked. Now, if your road commission in Ottawa County says we will put in a street of 24 feet, and if you want anything more, we'll bid that out for you, and they'll just add it to it. So it's not that something miraculous is going to fall from heaven and solve your problem. You're probably going to have to pony up some money to do it.
We've actually done that. We've done it on Ottawa Beach Road.
Yeah, that's perfect.
We've done it on Lake Shore Drive. There's no markings.
Yeah. Why not?
Good question. That's the issue.
Yes,
And the other advantage to putting in sharrows is it makes the road feel more squished. Not a real transportation term, but it makes people drive a little slower because they think a bike might be there. And that was, again, one of Ian Lockwood's points, that even though we think we have to have X amount of space, then when our speed limits are based on how people feel they should drive, how fast they feel they should drive, we can't just put a number up anymore. So if we make the road feel less broad, then people will drive a little slower and they'll be safer and you'll be better with bikes and everything gets better, even though we don't get to our place as fast as possible. So that was a selling point with the South Shore Drive people as we got rid of the left turn lane, and people seem to be pretty good with it now. It was a change, but they do like having that bike mobility now. And I do think, it does help speed.
Other comments? Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to focus a little bit on the pedestrian portion of this. Have we had any data on whether there's been an increase or decrease in car pedestrian?
I can't speak specifically to that. I don't know, but that's definitely something we'd like to be able to compare, especially at those location specific intersections. But from what I can tell, I don't think there's been an increase.
Yeah, I think particularly the other day when we were welcomed back to a Michigan winter, I think it's important, I don't know if we could do this in our social media or not, but to encourage people who have sidewalks or bikeways in front of their residences to clear those off until the municipal crews get there. It helps people who do want to use those walkways for walking to do that. And I think it's been part of our culture here. There has been individual attention rather than leaving it to whenever the Public Works Department gets done clearing the roadways to clearing the sidewalks. So I don't know if we could do that or not, but I think it would be a worthwhile recommendation.
And do you all have local ordinances in place covering that? I know the city I came from had that, but it stated that residents that front a sidewalk or businesses, property owners, have to have that cleared.
Yes. We don't.
It's a city issue, right? It's a city issue. Yeah.
But that's a good idea as far as a social media campaign or push. That's something that we can put out.
Whether or not it's an ordinance, it's just a nice neighborly idea.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially for bus stops and that sort of thing too. Yeah.
Particularly with bus stops.
Right.
Nancy?
And it's not just sidewalks too, the fire hydrants, as it piles up. I know we put out a video a year or two ago about cleaning out your fire hydrant, and that went viral, like 50,000 hits in Chicago. So it's important to think about the fire department too as things pile up.
Joe, did you learn anything?
Bunch, yeah. Thank you.
Good presentation. Yeah, I think Jerry's comments were well made. Maybe that's some of the input you were looking for, and maybe you and Mr. Berkman can talk about that further.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. Carolyn?
Right. So, let me get this hooked up. So in your policy packets, and I know with the long weekend, may have not been able to get to that as easily. So in the policy packet, there was a memo regarding the interagency working group and how that's going to affect how it could possibly affect our amendments in the future. And so in the memo, we didn't go into too much detail because it's kind of a complicated group to kind of explain. So in the memo, we went over just essentially who's a part of the group, why it's needed. It's part of the air quality conformity that we are dealing with in our West Michigan region. But then I'm going to get into more detail for you here. So just to start off again, who's a part of the IWAG group? IWAG is Interagency Working Group. For us, it's the 3 West Side MPOs. So it's ourselves, the MACC. It's also Wimser-Dick and Muskegon, and then GVMC in Grand Rapids. So it's us, our 3 MPOs, and then we're working very closely with MDOT in this group, but then we also have federal highways, federal transit, and then the DEQ and EPA have also been a part of these conversations. And the purpose of the group, and this is part that was also listed in the memo, so the real purpose is that the group will review amendments to our TIP or long-range plans going forward. And the reason why we have this group now is that it's needed to comply with the Regional Transportation Conformity, which is required under the Clean Air Act, to ensure that federally funded or approved highway and transit activities are consistent with or conform to the purpose of the Air Quality State Implementation Plan. So essentially, it's just a legal requirement that we are required to go forward with. And the one thing that we had been talking about the group, is this new? Is this a completely new group? It is not. About 4 or 5 years ago, this group was also tasked to do very similar work with our amendment schedules. But why now? So why do we have to do this now? And the reason why is back in September, so not too long ago, there was a court case. It's called the South Coast Court case. It was decided that the former 1997 ozone standards need to be, so the former 1997 ozone maintenance areas will have to now be required up until February 16 of this year, of 2019, have to conform or determine if their long-range plans, projects, and the transportation improvement program jobs conform to air quality conformity analysis. So a little bit more on the background. So back in 2004, that's when we had our designations for non-attainment in this region for the 1997 standard. And that was for all 3 areas, GVMC, Wimser-Dick, and us. But then in 2015, so just a few years ago, EPA completely revoked the 1997 standard because we had a new standard that was passed. But then because of that being pulled, someone essentially sued over that, and the court case then decided this year that even if you're in a maintenance area, even if you're completely in attainment now, if you were in a maintenance area, then you have to conform. So then on this next slide, I put Ottawa County. So, because we've had some discussions about air quality in this group a couple of times with how Allegan County is a partial designation for us this time around. And Ottawa County, in our current standard, is completely in attainment. But because Ottawa County was part of the 1997 ozone non-attainment area, and it was a maintenance area, we still have to grab it into this group. So if any projects happen in Ottawa County or Allegan County as a whole, they have to go through this group now. It's part of this anti-backsliding requirement, is the technical term for it. So we really don't think this should affect us too much. But how it's going to work is starting in early 2019, any of the TIP amendments that we bring through the group here, they first are looked at our tech committee, but then brought here for your final approval, any amendments we need to make to our projects. What we'll have to do is we'll have to submit them to this group. This group will likely meet once a month, and really in the future, it's probably just going to be an email chain or phone calls. As we get used to it, we probably won't have to do it in person. It's kind of new for everyone, even though this happened 4 or 5 years ago. It's a lot of new people in the group, so we're kind of figuring out a strategy that works best for our area. But how it will work is that everyone probably, and we're even thinking the second week of the month, We haven't fully firmed that up, but we're thinking that we'll just give all of our amendments that we're planning on bringing to you. It's kind of nice for our schedule, be right after our tech committee meeting. We'll put our amendments in through this IWAG group. And then before we meet here at policy, you'll be able to have it hopefully in your packets. You'll see what amendments need to get passed through this group. And everything should be really quite clean. The reason why that these projects have to go through this IWAG committee is that we essentially all have all eyes on it. Everyone sees the projects, and they just put up any red flags for anything that might need to go through conformity. And conformity essentially is a program that MDOT would run through their air quality division. And most of the time, we're expecting that most of our projects will not have to get tied up in conformity. That's where you could have some delays with passing them through. But most likely, we don't tend to have a lot of jobs that need it. Most conformity jobs are going to be expansion projects. So if you're adding lanes, which could then add more throughput or more cars on the road. So in the modeling system, it could look like you're adding air pollution to the system. But most of our jobs, we don't see that. Sometimes you will also have conformity for jobs like roundabouts because you're actually decreasing the amount of emissions because you're creating a better flow through the system and not as much stopping and starting. So that can actually help us though. We have these budgets for air quality. So if you think if your budget's 100 and you can only get up to that amount. So sometimes it's nice to run conformity through projects that will help us reduce our limit. So it's kind of a complex situation we're going through with this, but we'll give you some more updates on when we really get into the thick of it. I think starting January, February, we'll really get a sense for how this will work. If conformity has to be run on our current 2018, 2019 jobs that were already in our TIP up until February. So we already have those lists in our projects that are currently going on. We have those to MDOT. And then after that, the conformity should all be, the model will be run and good to go. And then in the future, any new jobs will just get added into that system. So we really don't think it should create any hardship or delays with our projects, but we did want to let you know that it's going on and it's happening. But again, we're very fortunate in the MACC area that in general, we are smaller, so we don't have as many projects. We don't have as much as GVMC would have in Grand Rapids. And we tend to have less that are going to be widening jobs for the most part. So, any questions at the moment? Yes.
I just hope Chicago has a similar system.
With
Because of clean
because of air
air.
quality, yes. With
Because
transport
most of our air issues
Yes.
come from them.
Yes. That's correct.
So very,
So this group will be meeting monthly, you said?
Yep, we'll be meeting
Ongoing?
monthly.
Or
So we'll probably be, I think the last couple times we've had meetings just to try to plan how this group will function. We've met up, the 3 MPOs, and anyone else who's a part of it, either through conference call or they'll show up. We've been typically meeting in Grand Rapids. It's kind of a centralized location at the MDOT office. So we think that for the first couple of months, we'll want to meet in person just to get everything ironed out so we get really used to our groove, our schedule. And then after that, once we're really comfortable with it, and there will probably only be a few amendments coming through from each MPO every month, most likely we'll end up doing that through an email system where we're exchanging or having some sort of online platform to share the jobs. And again, most of the time, they're looked at what type of job it is. Okay, yeah, you're doing just a resurfacing job or some mill and fill. And most likely you're not adding anything new to the system. So therefore, conformity does not have to be run through a model again.
I'm glad Zealand's doing their part with their new roundabout.
Yes, we're very excited for it. Yes, everyone's going to want one after you put it in. Who knows, we'll see.
Is Allegan County still considered non-compliant?
Yes, for this situation, it's the whole county that conformity will need to be run on. So any job, no matter where it is, in Ottawa or Allegan, even though Ottawa currently is in attainment, which is great, Allegan County, we're that partial designation. So for the current standard. So currently, the way that, with any kind of, funding mechanism or, which areas really need to be involved in the current standard, it's just that partial along the lakeshore in Allegan County. The rest of it doesn't have to worry about it. But for this particular thing, any project in Allegan County or Ottawa, because it's that past 1997 standard. Yeah, so going back in history a bit.
Carolyn, you're right there. I've heard a few discussions about air quality, so we'll look forward to having you lead us in that at some point. So, Tim, do you want to?
Yes, I should have mentioned at the start, our MDOT representatives were going to try to join us by phone. David Fairchild in place of Eric Mullen from the Lansing office, and then Steve Redmond, of course, from the Grand Region office. I don't know if they can.
I'm here, Tim.
Okay. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, David? Or, I mean, Carolyn summarized it well.
I think Carolyn did a very good breakdown. That was going to be basically what I was going to say. There wasn't really anything more to add on my part because I think Carolyn did a great job on it. We do have our MDOT specialist, Donna Whittle. She's really spearheading the effort, sort of, leading everything from MDOT. And so in the event that there are any more detailed questions or anything else that your member agencies have, we can always, I can always get everything over to her. So, yeah, so we have additional resources if your member agencies have any additional questions.
Okay. Thanks, David. So, like Carolyn said, what this means for us, hopefully not much, in that it's business as usual as far as tip amendments that your agencies may have. What we want to try to do is streamline it as much as we can. That was why the suggestion came of having this IWAG meeting happen right after our tech meeting, and we try to coordinate schedules because all three MPOs are trying to do this together and at the same time. And so we figured if we could meet in between tech and policy, a vast majority of our projects that are tip amendments are likely going to be exempt from this conformity analysis. But if there is a project that triggers a conformity review, it may mean a slight delay on the tip amendment happening. But I think this group communicates well, and we try to process tip amendments as efficiently, as quickly as possible. At least that's what I've learned has been your past practice, and I think we'll be able to continue to do that going forward. But this is just something new to us, and I wanted to make you aware of it with this kind of informational update.
Carolyn, thank you. Are you the representative then that will be meeting with the group?
Tim and I will both
Okay,
be.
great. Thank you, Carolyn. Tim.
All right. In your packets, you should have, speaking of tip amendments, what we are proposing for this round. It was a Excel spreadsheet with 13 rows on it. Actually, the top 12 are all MDOT projects, and the bottom one is a MACC specific project. But what I wanted to do is kind of quickly run through these, and really this stems, a lot of these stem from this new project management program that MDOT has rolled out, the JobNet program. And Carolyn and I went to a training in Lansing and learned quite a bit. This is there's, I think, growing pains as with any new system, but we're learning it as with the other agencies. And really, as we're migrating our projects over and MDOT's projects over from the former system, which was called the e-file, into JobNet, it's highlighting a lot of issues that have triggered formal amendments. So as we run through these, you'll find out that they're relatively minor in nature, but just kind of working quickly through the list from the top. The top two projects relate to installing a dilemma zone system that MDOT was going to do on US 31. But actually, the top amendment is to add the phase, and then the bottom amendment is to abandon the phase. So why does that even require action? It just does. So we're in one fell swoop adding it and taking it away. So not a lot happening there with that one. The next two line items deal with pavement markings. And again, in this case, all that's being changed is the job was originally programmed inadvertently to have a length of 0 miles, which was incorrect. That length was changed to 1.089 miles, you'll see on the end, and because it's a construction length change of over a mile, that triggers the need to have a formal amendment. So it needs to go through this group. So the construction length is just being amended on those two line items. One is for the engineering phase, or PE. The other is for the actual construction phase. But those are pavement marking jobs that'll happen throughout the Ottawa area. Moving down to the 5th and 6th line items, again, it's another pavement marking project where the length incorrectly programmed in as 0 miles needed to be reflected as 1.8 miles. So both those phases, engineering and construction, require a formal tip amendment. Then moving down, there is a job that involves replacing signage. It was added, so that required an amendment, and then shortly thereafter, the budget was reduced. And anytime the budget changes more than 25%, that triggers the need for a tip amendment. So that's what those two signing replacement projects are doing, those two line items. Then skipping down yet another line, again, there was a pavement marking reading and condition assessment project where the construction length had to change from that 0 initial input to 1.3 miles. So the amendment is changing that construction length to be accurate. Then there's a Saugatuck Rest Area project that you'll see down getting near the bottom where the phase is being added. So that's being added to the 2019 tip, the construction phase. It was originally planned to be in 2021, which would have been in the next tip cycle. But because of the 10-year rule that Federal Highway has, meaning if funds are used on an early phase like engineering, that project has to happen within a 10-year time frame, or you're required to pay back those funds. So that project was advanced to 2019. You'll see the Saugatuck Rest Area improved. Then the last, getting down to the last two line items in MDOT's category, on 196, they're going to construct some indirect left turns in 2019. The phase budget, again, was adjusted over that 24% threshold, so we're modifying the phase budget. And then the last MDOT project is merely adding a phase to the US 31 resurfacing project to be done in, the engineering will be done in 2020. So that's in this tip cycle, and then construction will occur in the next tip cycle, or 2022. So these are largely housekeeping items that MDOT was asking for us to take care of in this tip amendment. The last line item on this sheet is our project, the MACC. We have a data collection line item that we use for planning purposes. That's primarily where we obtain traffic counts from. And our unified work program, there was a discrepancy in what was shown in that document versus the tip, and those two have to mirror one another. And so in the UWP, or Unified Work Program, there were planning funds set aside of $8,360, and then surface transportation funds of $17,000. We merely have to amend the tip to reflect the total of those two, which is what's shown here in that final line item. So again, more of a housekeeping matter. But with that, be happy to answer any questions, but that's what we're proposing for this month's tip amendment.
Tom?
I'll move that we amend the tip as presented.
Thank you, Nancy. Any questions, discussion? All's in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Add one thing to
Yes,
that.
sir.
So just as an informational item with this, it doesn't require action, but there were a series of administrative modifications that we did process. That's what was included in your packet behind this list of tip amendments. Relatively minor in nature. I think name changes, some date changes, but Carolyn processed those. But I believe it's been the past practice of this board to let you know what administrative modifications took place, and if you have any questions on those, feel free to let Carolyn or I know. But just wanted to let you know why those were in your packet.
Okay. Is David still on the phone, or?
David, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Any? Yeah.
you have any need for him?
Any further updates from your end that you'd like to share with the group?
No, with regards to the region projects, Tim did a very good job explaining everything. With our new project management system, JobNet, whenever any changes are made in the system, it automatically generates on the list in real time, and then that list is then forwarded on to NPO staff to inform their member agencies and things like that. So sometimes you'll see things on there that look, very minor or very obvious or things like that. But when they went through and programmed the system, we had to do a one-size-fits-all system for every single NPO in the entire state. So some NPOs, have it within their bylaws to notify their member agencies of something like a deletion or like a minor update or things like that, whereas others may not. So if you see something on there that looks like it's very obvious or very minor, the reason why is we have to make a one-size-fits-all system that, complies with every single NPO's wishes. So that's why we basically include everything on it. And just to follow that up, if I didn't hear any questions, but in the event you do have any questions regarding NDOT's list, you can get them to me and I can forward them over to our region staff. In terms of the projects that are going on in your specific region, usually region staff has a little expertise on those. I do have a general overview, but generally they're the boots on the ground, so to speak. I'm all the way back in Lansing. So if you have any additional questions, I can get them over to region staff or Tim can shoot an email to region staff. But at this time, that's all I have.
David, this is Steve Ruffin. I've been on the phone, so.
Oh, wait, Steve.
Whatever questions have, we certainly can answer them regarding our project, so. Just second when you said Tim did a real good job of explaining what was here before the committee today, so.
All right, thanks, Steve. Any other update? We're at the MDOT update section on the agenda. Anything else you need to share with the group?
One quick thing I would say is that I enjoyed the presentation on your non-motorized effort, and would extend, our assistance, given we did the regional Grand Region non-motorized plan to help you out wherever we can. Again, the Grand Region one's more regional focused, but I think it could have some impact on what you're putting together. So we certainly can work together answering questions you guys may have.
Okay, we do have a question, Mr. Story.
Thank you. To our MDOT colleagues on the Saugatuck Rest Area construction project, when is that scheduled to start and conclude?
I have to look into that. I mean, because we just walked that. Like Tim explained, we had moving. So to get the specific schedule, I have to look into that. But I can do that. We can send something out to policy committee by email.
That'd be great, as well as.
I don't have those specific dates yet, but I'll look into that and get back to Tim.
Okay.
I think it says 2022 on the sheet.
Does it?
Come on, Jim. It was moved back to 2019.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was originally scheduled for 21.
Thank you.
Any chance we could get an artist rendering of what it's going to look like?
What the improvements in the design?
Well, for $4 million, it looks like sounds like a pretty major project to me.
Well, in those rest areas, we've always get questions about the expense to it. And one of the things that happened is just like a lot of the freeway system when it was first constructed, the rest areas were not constructed to handle the type of volume that they have. And for a while, we were getting in trouble with DEQ because we were having septic systems and everything else that were not set up for the capacity that they were serving. I'm not sure if that's exactly what's going on here, but it sounds like there must be, because we're not just modern day standard from something that was, when it was first built, was never meant to handle the type of volumes and use that it has now.
Thank you.
One of the things we can do, and I can talk to Tim directly about this, how we would handle it, is maybe we just come in and give a short presentation at one of your meetings of, what exactly we're going to do there in terms of specifics, what kind of renderings we do have. That's something I certainly have no problem working on.
I think that's a great idea, Steve. We look forward to it.
Okay, I'll be in touch with Tim then.
Any other questions?
I've got
Yes.
one comment that I want to thank MDOT for the mostly complete business loop interchange project in Zeeland. That turned out pretty good from what I see so far. I haven't rode through it since it's been fully completed, but I want to thank you for getting it done, even though you had the work stoppage. So thanks.
Oh, yeah, we were happy to get it done, given what we ran into. So, yeah, we appreciate that.
All right, thanks, Steve. And if we can talk offline about these other issues, but appreciate the updates.
Sounds good.
Good, thank you. Rob?
All right, well, good morning or afternoon, everybody. You'll see in your packets there's a memo included for update for our Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant. You'll see here on the screen and in your memo also that there's a chart here with some of the acres. It's a little harder to see here on the smaller screens, but this graph here shows April 2016 is when we started the grant through FY18, which ended this past September. So as I often lament to Kelly and others that when your fiscal year ends in September, you don't always get a picture of what happens in October, which can be a significant amount of cover crops and gypsum. So a few things to notice on here are sediment reduction and phosphorus reduction numbers. Over 3,500 tons of sediment reduced and 5,300 plus pounds of phosphorus reduced over the life of this grant so far. So just recently we had made a request of the EPA to extend this grant until December 2019. Originally this grant did end in March 2019. We had money left over, or money that had not been spent yet, that had not been allocated to certain projects. So we felt like asking for an extension would be the best thing to do. The EPA did approve a request with that to include grassed waterways as an eligible practice. So this will give us a chance to spend some of that money and also get a couple of long-term projects completed. So here's where I wanted to look a little bit at the cropping year. This is 2017 and 2018 crop year comparison. You may be wondering why 2016 is not included in that. Numbers just weren't that great. So I don't know, you see these numbers from what they were in 2016. In 2016, we had less than 500 acres total for cover crops, gypsum, and residue management. So 2017 comparison and 2018 cover crops, that 1,921 acre number, I'd really hoped for almost 2,500, but if you've been paying attention to the weather this past month and a half, it's been wet. So we haven't really been able to get all the cover crops planted this year that we'd hoped. And the same goes for gypsum. Less acres this year. We really get a lot of gypsum spread in the end of September, October, even in November if the weather cooperates with us. Residue management was up, which was great to see. So in 2016, we had 14 farmers participating, and that's 14 farmers were only able to get just over 500 acres. In 2017, we added a few. We had 22 farmers, and then where we sit now, 35 participating farmers with contracts to implement cover crops, gypsum, or residue management. So if you'd told me 3 years ago that I'd get excited talking about cover crops, what happened here? There we go. Yeah, so 3 years ago, if you'd have told me cover crops would get me excited, I'd have told you were crazy. This is a field that had annual ryegrass aerially applied to it. So last year we did some aerial application and we had dry weather versus the wet weather we had this year. And you can see this year the annual ryegrass was spread in September, got the rain going, and here it is growing in the bean crop. So these beans will be harvested and you'll be left with a standing cover crop. So same thing here, this is in a cornfield. This is actually in Olive Township. This was a field that was contracted through Project Clarity, not through the GLRI. I wanted to include it to show the difference. But the same date, they had annual ryegrass applied into this cornfield. And this is actually a picture that one of the farmers sent me. He was pretty excited about sending that to me. So here we have, this is a tillage radish, and this is planted with also a forage oat. So you can kind of see there's radishes in there. A little harder to see on the pictures here, smaller. It looked a lot bigger, or a lot better on the bigger screen. But tillage radish and forage oats here. This is in Fillmore Township. And here's one of the things that it really kind of excites me. This is a cover crop mix that's got 9 different varieties, 9 different species of cover crops growing in it. You can see we've got sunflowers in there. There's some sorghum sudan grass. We've got 3 different types of clover, tillage radish, purple top turnips. I believe this one's got, I'm not sure if there's vetch in there, but just a whole different slew of things growing in this field as a cover crop. What that does when you get these cocktail mixes, you get different root depths, you get different plants working together to scavenge nitrogen, to fix nitrogen, and you're armoring the soil against soil erosion. And sunflowers look nice. So similarly here, sunflowers in this is a 12-way mix, 13-way mix if you include some volunteer wheat that came up following wheat harvest. So again, here we've got sunflowers. There is sorghum sudan grass in here. And this one, I believe, had 2 types of clover, millet, cereal rye, and there's flax and buckwheat in there, and vetch. So it was interesting to see this cover crop progress. We had the sunflowers come up, we had blue flax flowers that you can kind of see in there, and then we had some of the other flowers come up. The buckwheat was white, so we had these white and blue and yellow flowers, and insects all over the place, butterflies all over the place. This was planted after a wheat crop, and he plans on no-tilling directly into this crop this spring. There won't be any tillage done here. They're still trying to determine if they need to roll it or kill it first before they plant. So here's another thing that kind of gets me excited. It's a little bit difficult to see here, but you can see in the background there is a tractor pulling a drill, and they're planting beans directly into the standing cover crop. This is in Old Thrystle Township, and this is that same crop about 2 weeks later. Hard to see here, but there are beans growing in that stubble. This is a cereal rye field. And then this was taken several weeks ago. This is the new cover crop. So this is that same bean field that was planted, and they did an aerial application of 2 species of radish and vetch in this field. So similarly, this will be no-tilled into, and then herbicide application after it's planted. So just a few of the exciting things that when I drive around the watershed, I see that's going on, and it gets me excited. I like to see guys doing things that are different. This is a little bit out of the ordinary here. Some of it's being done in sandy ground. There's some of it's being done in some hard clay ground. That one picture of the 12-way mix, I call that area no man's land. It's between Chicago Drive and 196. It's hilly, it's clay. A lot of good things going on out there. So if there's any questions, I'd love to take a few.
Do they get the same yield for when they have a cover crop like that, Ron?
The idea is yes. There's a lot that goes into whether it's field conditions, wet conditions. Some of these beans, with some of the dry summer we had, the top pods didn't quite fill out on a lot of these. I have not heard whether or not these beans yielded comparatively to what other fields have. So this grower has some fields that are not no-tilled. This is a little bit sandier piece. It's a good candidate for him to no-till and to try this on. So, but I have not heard yet what these beans yielded. So.
Curious, as you get farmers to commit acreage into this program, have they stayed in and you build on it, or have some gone in and gone back out as others come in?
Well, that's an interesting question. So far, we've maintained everybody. We almost didn't until Ken's son accused him of being a quitter, and he signed back up. That's a true story. So Ken's son Brent, who was working at Nutrient Ag, he's been a big help for me, knowing those guys.
Do you have like informational stuff to get other farmers in, or what's your?
We do. Yeah, we've worked on a pamphlet. One of the interns worked on that for us, so we've handed a few of those out. The big challenge was how do we engage farmers who maybe only farm part time? There's guys like John are on the farm all day, every day, easy to find. We've got a lot of guys that maybe farm 100 acres or 50 acres, and they have an off-farm job. So leaving something for those guys or working to get those guys involved has been a challenge. But so far, we're gaining a few.
So I'm a city girl, but when you say cover crop, does that mean that goes through a whole season?
Yeah, so the cover crops are typically planted after harvest and then either terminated or tilled under or planted directly into in the spring. So the idea is that we keep a living plant on the soil.
Retaining the soil.
Yep.
So there isn't any harvest of a cover crop?
Typically, no.
So that was George Washington Carver's thing when he wanted people to rotate, and he came up with the plant peanuts, but there was no use for them, so then he came up with 400 uses of peanuts. Is it possible to come up with ways to use these cover crops that could help sell?
Yeah, so there are guys that have cattle are grazing cover crops. We don't see a lot of it going on here in the watershed, but there are guys that will run cows through this. I'd mentioned there's a forage oat. There are some cover crops that you're able to harvest in the spring as a silage, and then they can stockpile that and feed cattle. So there are other uses. Some of the radishes that are planted are a daikon variety, so that's Asian cuisine there's a use there for those too.
Yeah, so that's a great motivating point for the farmers as well. And it's kind of like the craft beer industry when you're making these cocktails in the fields of all different plants and kind of selling that as, creative farming to the farmers, right? I mean, that can put us on the map too. That's great. Thank you.
Probably Rob knows this, and he mentioned it already. Some of Rob's biggest obstacles and the farmer's biggest obstacles are timing and weather conditions. Just seems like the lack of proper weather conditions to get these crops established before it got too cool or wet, or that's what's sometimes the very difficult part of it, because your main emphasis is on your crop. If you're wanting to get your cover crop in there, it's a secondary thing, and if it just doesn't time out well, it's very difficult.
It is.
And sometimes, again, then to dispose of the residue of the cover crop can be a hindrance as well. That can, but it can also benefit you too, so I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, John's absolutely correct. Yeah, I'm a little bit interested, slightly concerned to see what the residue will be like on a few of those fields that guys want to plant into. We can see some nitrogen issues with that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Rob, good pictures tells a story.
Yeah.
And so does the increased involvement of farming community. So thank you for both your work and also the demonstration. I can get excited about it a little bit too. So.
Good job, man.
Yep. Okay, Kelly.
All right, so at your place settings, you all have a copy of the 2018 annual report. So I wanted to just highlight some of the activities in there, but encourage you to take a closer look at these. The information that Rob shared is in there, so I'm going to skip over that part. But so on outreach and education, we certainly had a busy year doing 18 community events, 5 presentations, 8 volunteer stream events. In addition to that, 2 river cleanups. We're able to do 40 road stream crossing inventories and about 100 volunteers throughout the summer. The pictures I've got up there show our interns that we had this summer. We had 3, and it was because we had those 3 interns that we were able to accomplish all of this. They were out there with us at these community events, helping with the volunteering. They pretty much did the road stream crossing inventories. They managed those volunteers mostly on their own. So in large part, this work would not have been done if we had not had those phenomenal interns this summer. I'm hoping for more next summer, so if you know anybody looking, we'll start advertising that after the holidays. So on the stormwater side of things, again, there's more detail in the written report, but we've been working a lot on planning, kind of updating stormwater management plans for the MS4 permits. So that's with the cities, the counties, and the road commissions. The big emphasis this past year was on the post-construction runoff control. So that's the county development standards. So both Joe Bush's office and Denise Miedemar's office have been working together to update those standards, working with the same consultant that's working with the City of Holland, working with Kent County, working with Muskegon County to standardize those documents. Everybody's going to have a little bit different way to apply those, but the documents will look very similar. So we're pretty close to having those finalized, and hopefully in 2019 they will actually be rolled out. So this affects the development plan reviews that your planning commissions would be involved in. So we will be doing some specific outreach to each planning commission to make sure they're aware of the changes in those standards. Some of that has already been introduced. We did have 3 of our MS4 permits audited this year. It was, let's see, City of Holland, Allegan County, and Ottawa County Road Commission. So there was no real issues that were found in the audits other than that most everybody was due for training. So I think I talked about that last month, some of the training that we did. So that was a big part of discovery during the audit. And then we had a highlight of the year was we were able to have our 2nd annual Making the Case for Green Infrastructure event. A little bit different focus this year. We focused on those post-construction standards, had a half-day event, different venue, so a little bit different feel to it this year. But very positive feedback, so we're certainly planning to do a 3rd one this coming year. I had already mentioned we had about 100 or so volunteers participate in our programs this year. River cleanups are kind of our biggest event, or biggest volunteer events. That's where we get most of those volunteers from. So these pictured here were, probably some of our larger groups that we've had the past several years. And then our road stream crossing volunteers, I just kind of tossed a few pictures in there. The one in the middle here is the middle road stream crossing with the orange vest. That is Tony. He was an intern with us last year, so he's continued to volunteer with us. And then just some highlights from Project Clarity. Again, there's more details in the written report, but Rob mentioned a little bit with the agricultural projects. And this, with the Project Clarity numbers that they reported, are cumulative since Project Clarity started. This is not 2018 numbers. This is since Project Clarity began. I know it was the kickoff was about 2013. We didn't start doing the agricultural projects quite then, but so they've racked up some pretty impressive numbers. And with the water storage and the wetlands, the wetland mitigation, the stream and ditch restoration, the educational kiosks, and of course all of the educational events that they've done as well. I think that's all I have on the annual report highlights. I did want to also mention the annual meeting, which again, there's an invitation at your place settings. You should have all received a mailed invitation as well that had a really bad spelling mistake in it. So we'll test you later and see if you saw that spelling mistake. But But so that's coming up next week already, December 6th. We'll be back at Holland City Hall. We've got 4 Hope College student groups that will be presenting research that they've been doing with heavy metals in the watershed, with different remediation techniques that uptake by plants, so that should be very interesting. We'll of course announce our Watershed Stakeholder of the Year and have reports from Project Clarity and the monitoring that the Grand Valley Annis Water Resources Institute has done. So that is all I have. Any questions about the report, about the meeting? Yeah.
Kelly, the heavy metals, are those students trying to research the source of the heavy metals, or have they identified them?
All I have seen are the titles of their presentations, so I don't know anything more than the titles, which seem to be more about soil and plant interactions, not necessarily where they've come from.
They had one last year, right? One group did it last year, I remember.
Yeah.
Then it was just,
Mushrooms or
they found some sources, and then they were just trying to take a look at, they were measuring actually like the grass and stuff like that, because that actually takes up the heavy metal out of the ground. That's what they were actually doing a measure on.
More at how heavy metals behave in the environment, not necessarily where they came from.
As far as where did they come from, because, you know, that's probably 50, 60 more years ago. But we're trying to study the impact of it at this point.
Yeah, so I guess we'll find out what they have.
You were listening close for us. It was good.
That was very interesting. You should all go if you get the chance.
I usually do.
Those students are very,
Yeah.
involved in their work and excited about it, so.
Yeah, but all 4 groups are doing something having to do with heavy metals, so that must have been
That must have been the exciting topic last year.
Yeah,
That's why I
it
remember.
must have been.
It's not that this memory is that good.
Certainly something very different than what we do, what Project Clarity does, but not any less important.
No music, just heavy metals. Sorry to disappoint you, Kevin.
You thought you were talking about the band.
The Tesla group. That's the only one I know that's heavy metal.
Kelly, thank you very much. Any other questions? Nice report, thank you. All right, administrative issues, Tim.
So on your financial report, you'll notice in the packet, probably the biggest change is it's 7 pages instead of 3. So Chris Brown, our accountant, broke this out a little bit differently for the coming year. Quickly, the first 3 pages are what you're used to seeing, kind of the combined budget, where revenues are at 31%, expenses are only at 3% because it's early in the year. But then the next 2 pages break out a general fund, which is the transportation side of things, as well as then the last 2 pages split out just the watershed side. So in the interest of transparency and showing things as clearly as we can, we kind of came up with this new format. So that's why it's 7 pages instead of 3. So if you have any questions, be happy to answer those or get back to you with any comments from Chris.
Just curious, in that I heard about this Tim Brown just back a few months ago when we were on the interview committee. Who really is he, and who does he? Obviously, he contracts to work with us, but is he like a CPA or?
Yes. So yeah, Chris is an accountant. He does this for a number of organizations. Also happens to do it for Grand Valley Metro Council. So he comes 2 days a week, Tuesday afternoons typically, and Fridays morning or afternoon, and provides our accounting services. But yeah, he's an independent contractor, has his own business.
Does he do the payroll too, or?
Yes. Yeah, he processes payroll for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe he's done it for many years for us.
Yeah.
A long time. Yeah, good guy.
That just heard about him a few months ago.
Yep.
He's got offices in Grand Rapids and also in Grand Haven. Yeah, he's kind of unique because he's done Grand Valley Metro Council for many, many years, I think, so.
Right, I'm very thankful to have him. I mean, he's got a strong knowledge on the MPO side of things too. So from the specifics of how our MDOT billings work, he's a great resource to have in the office. So thankful for him. And I should mention our audit took place this past week, Monday through Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So the auditors will be here in January or February to provide their report.
Okay.
On the executive committee side of things, just wanted to note, you've got the summary in the packet. This last meeting was the first one we had with our new members, so appreciate having more involvement there. Wanted to just highlight two things also. Staffing wise, we're currently advertising for 2 positions, an assistant planner, which we got about 6 or 7 responses to, and going through interviews on that right now, and then a part-time admin assistant. This morning I counted over 183 responses to that. So a lot to comb through there, but what it says is the MACC is a great place to work. So we'll be going through that. And then the other thing I'll highlight, as I've been talking to you at the last several meetings on the TIP development for the 2020 to 2023 cycle, our call for projects closed, had a number of responses. We have about $6 million to distribute over that 4-year period, and we had over $15 million in requests. So our work is cut out for us, but we'll be coming at your January meeting with a recommended list.
Any questions for Tim on that? Jerry, thanks for hosting. What's happening?
Okay, first of all, welcome to Park Township. Glad to have you all here. Being Park Township, I'll talk a little bit about parks. We've been blessed over the years to have, obviously, a state park, but also county parks. And in the last several years, we've really had a focus from the Ottawa County Recreation Commission, which last I knew, David was the chair of that. Are you still the chair? Still in. Thank you. But also thank the county for their support. Right now, underway, just started a few weeks ago down at Parkside Marina, just before you go into the state park, that marina. For approximately 41 years, some significant, very special acreage of public property has not been available to the public. It's been leased to a marina. And there's a long story and a long history there. And I'm very proud of our County Board of Commissioners, our Recreation Commission. We had a lot of people come to Park Township too, but we really had no jurisdiction over that. I'm very pleased that the public is going to have access to an unpolished gem on Lake Macatawa by, if everything goes according to plan, by early next summer, maybe by Memorial Day, that gem will be polished to the tune of, I think it's approximately, John Schultz told me, around $2 million. And it's exciting what they're doing. We are playing a small part. We're going to have a small plaza there with some history of the parks in Park Township. Okay? And it really looks like an exciting, that's kind of the last piece of the puzzle. You look at what's been done along the waterfront, you look at Mount Pisgah, the Ottawa Beach corridor that the township did. We've had a great partnership, and we're blessed, but I think the residents and the 2 million visitors that come to this area are also blessed because of it. So I want to highlight that. Park Township, under leadership of Mr. Fink, who's sitting out there in the audience, he's just finishing his almost second year here, another month. Very glad to have him here. He's been very aggressive and successful in getting grants, which is new for Park Township. We don't know of any grants that we've had in the past, but in the last couple of years we've had several. We just did some major upgrades to Winstrom Park. If you're into pickleball or bocce ball, go to Winstrom Park. I think we're a little bit elated in getting into the pickleball. Some of you are way ahead of us. It's unbelievable how much use that stuff is getting. And it focuses maybe not on quite so much the young crowd. It's more folks like us that are into that. The big issue, and maybe you could just hold up what I shared with you, Tim. We just finished.
Right next to you, just to let you know. I don't have enough copies.
Got copies right here for you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't have enough copies for everyone, and I'll get more made. But
we need to get it online.
Yep.
But we just finished, actually it was a little over a 2-year project, but with a committee that our board appointed, a vision committee, to what do we do with the 80 acres, which you see out the windows here, which has been called the Park Township Airport. Park Township Airport is one of the oldest continuous operating airports in the state of Michigan. The history is unbelievable. Trained pilots during the war, goes on and on and on and on. And prior to West Michigan Regional opening up, this was the hub right here. And obviously, the number of planes coming in and out has gone down. Over the years, it's been tough to find money. The board has not been excited about putting general fund money in. Ottawa Aviation has struggled, long story. And in this book, you're going to find the background and the history, but more importantly, and I think the background and history is important. And this document that was done in-house, especially under Howard's leadership, I think is significant. And the vision committee came up with a vision. And some people think, man, that's huge. Well, visions are supposed to be huge. And we view this area here is the closest thing to our downtown as the township has. A lot of townships don't have a central area. Cities have a downtown. We don't have a downtown. We have what we call Park Central, and that's where the airport is and the Ottawa County Fair, which, by the way, Park Township owns. Ottawa County does not own the Ottawa County Fairgrounds. A lot of people think that. What we're trying to do is come up with a plan to have this Park Central area. This focuses on the north side of the road, the airport property. What's it going to look like? And I have made the comment that as important as the waterfront is to the city of Holland and the region, and what happens with the old power plant in that area there, this too to us and to the region is just as important. People, close to 2 million people annually, sometimes it's 1.5, sometimes it's a little over 2 million people go to Holland State Park. Most of them drive right by here. We don't look so good. Some of the airport people got nervous when I asked the board to allow us to establish the committee. And in fact, there was some behind the scenes yelling and screaming, as you know how that happens sometimes in governmental units. And I was accused of letting go of a gas balloon that went up and I couldn't get it back. Well, you know what? We think that this has got a lot of potential. By the way, my response to the gentleman from Iowa Aviation was that I didn't think that the board was going to close the airport. And he says, I can't speak for some board members, but I just don't think they're going to vote to close. They don't have to. It's been closing itself for the last 10, 15, 20 years. And what we need to do is get a hold of what we want this to be. This vision document, I think, does a great job of putting some ideas out there. Our board has accepted it. We'll have a strategic planning meeting next Monday night, which this will be a major focus of, certainly. However, we need to get significant public input on what do our 18,000 residents think, but we also would like to know what you all think. What we have in here is ambitious. I was a little disappointed in the headlines in the Sentinel Friday. I think they were about this big. It's going to cost millions, and I don't want to focus on the money. I want to focus on what it can be, what it should be. And we're not going to do it overnight. We're talking about phasing it in probably over 10 years. That could change. It could be shorter, it could be longer. I hope the MACC can find some ways to help us. When you look at, and Tim came to one of our Airport Vision Committee meetings, and I appreciate you being there, because I think there are some things in here, including additions to our bike path, connections along the north edge, off Ottawa Beach to Perry, and some other things that in fact can tie in. And after all, airports are transportation, right? So with that, and you haven't got a copy of this, do you? Okay.
I do not.
And I want our contiguous townships, and please pass one to Nancy for sure. And I got 2 more here for somebody on the way out. Take some time to look at it. It's 93 pages. Extremely well indexed, lots of visuals of what we think this could be and what we're looking at. And I've had people say, well, I don't support the airport. Nobody supports the airport the way it's been. It's gone. It's going to be gone. It's going to be an air park is what we're proposing. There'll still be planes coming in and out, but a significant amount of that acreage is going to be used for things that the whole community can have access to. So we're excited about it. And if you have ideas or you on what we should be doing or funding sources, we're hoping some of the ideas, now that we have a vision and a plan, we might see some corporate sponsorship. One of the letters that you'll find back in the index we got just a few weeks ago. It's on Amway stationery. And as you're probably well aware, but if you aren't, I'll tell you, Rich DeVos, who unfortunately passed away just a few months ago, used this airport significantly. His helicopter flew in and out of here. His son Vic is big into aviation, started the aeronautics charter school out at the airport, and they have a hangar there. And there's some ways that we are looking to tie in. The chief pilot for Rich DeVos is on the Ottawa Aviation Board, has been for a few years. The letter came from the vice president of aviation, who's over all of the aviation issues for Amway. And we are really hopeful that we can spruce this thing up. First of all, we need to be embarrassed that it doesn't look better than it does, but it's got the potential of having so much higher level use for everybody. So that's kind of what's going on in Park Township, along with everything else and all the day-to-day stuff like you all have. We appreciate the good relationship we have with all of you. Holland Charter Township does significant things that we partner with, as does the city, and we need to build on that. And that's what this organization is about. And I think there's potential, and Tim has heard this from those of us on the interview committee, to find more ways to do regional cooperative things to improve for all of our taxpayers. So with that, I'd say thank you for being here.
Good report, Jerry. Very good report. Park Township as well. That marine issue surfaced 6 years ago. All of you who are in this kind of business, it quickly became defined by Holland Sentinel as public taking over private enterprise. We lost the definition of it. We stepped back, and I said to John, next time, let's make sure we talk to everybody well ahead of time. Park Township, you were wonderful, so thanks for listening and being a part of that cooperative effort. It's going to be very special, I think. Other members, we'll go around the table. James. All right, I'm going to go, if you all right? Terry? All right. We are back in January, so everybody have a wonderful Christmas. Staff, Howard, do you want to say anything?
I'm good, thank you, though.
Okay. So we will reconvene on January 7th at Laketown Township Hall.
I've got one more, right?
And Tim has one more.
One more very briefly, because I know we're running late. One thing we just wanted to make you aware of, it was brought to our attention by the Ottawa County Planning Department, and MTA, the Michigan Townships Association, has come out with an article in opposition to this, but proposed Senate Bill 1188 is being considered tomorrow and Wednesday in front of the Senate's Natural Resources Committee. But what it's proposing to do is to eliminate a local agency's ability to prohibit or require a permit process for tree removal on non-residential properties. And so what this is stemming from, because we found an article in the paper about this, Kelly did, there is a situation in Canton Township of Wayne County between Detroit and Ann Arbor where some property owners removed over 1,400 trees without obtaining the proper permits to establish a Christmas tree farm. And now they're facing up to $450,000 in fines. So that seems to be what triggered this. It's being proposed by Senator Tom Casperson from District 38. It was proposed on November 8th, being referred to the Committee on Natural Resources. Like I said, tomorrow and Wednesday they'll be having a discussion on their agenda on this. But wanted to make you aware of it. Our concerns are twofold. One, removing the local control from the townships and cities who may have ordinances in place on these types of things. And also the impact on water quality due to the loss of trees and the erosion that may ensue from that. So wanted to let you know about that in case you hadn't heard, but that's Senate Bill 1188. If you have any questions, see Kelly afterwards or myself, and we can help point you in the right resources. And then lastly, just on a personal note, because this is the last meeting of the 2018 calendar year, because we are not meeting in December, like David said, we were just reminiscing before the meeting, I think 6 months to almost the day that I was in this same room in front of the interview committee for my second meeting. So the spirit of Thanksgiving, thank you for bringing me and my family here. We're very glad to be here, even on days like this, and happy to be in West Michigan. And in 6 months, almost from now, we will have a natural-born Michigan citizen. So the Berkmans are adding a fourth. So anyways, very, very happy to be here and appreciate all that you guys have done for me over the past 6 months. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, we are adjourned. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.